Hello and welcome to Microsoft Build 2022. My name is Joey. I am a Principal Program Manager on the Azure IoT Platform team. And today I'm happy to get to share our IoT Platform vision, along with some really exciting announcements that I think will really help simplify the IoT developer experience. To get started, I'd like to talk a little bit about IoT in general. The concept of IoT, or the Internet of Things, has been around for quite a while. We've seen cloud-connected products on the market for well over a decade. Even my first job as an engineering manager was at a company making connected door locks nearly 8 years ago. Today, almost everything is connected. From consumer goods to cameras to machinery, even plumbing. Yes, there are smart toilets out there now. As technology has helped make these implementations easier, the number of these intelligent assets has grown tremendously. We went from a couple brands with a couple connected products to millions of devices across thousands of brands connected all around the world. As we start to take a look at fleets of assets deployed together, we really start to get a view of an entire intelligent environment. We've gone from monitoring the temperature of a room or the speed of a machine to understanding the environmental impact of an entire office building or the productivity of an entire manufacturing line, helping bring tremendous optimizations from both an environmental impact, productivity, and cost savings. With this rich real-time data, now we can start modeling these environments, building connectivity between different environments and creating rich ecosystems of products that are working seamlessly together. However, building these complex, connected, intelligent ecosystems is far from simple. As the desire for connected products and operations has evolved, so has the available technology for developing these products. When I looked back to my role 8 years ago, we had incredibly low-powered devices running real-time operating systems, and that was about it. Today, we still have many of those, and those things are still critically important to our ecosystem. If I look, I've got smart lights in my house that communicate back to the cloud that I can use voice assistants to turn on. Things that are battery powered still exist. These really constrained technologies are still pivotal to our ecosystem. But we have an entire environment now of new products that are very, very different. We have customers running IoT applications with complex deployments on extremely robust hardware, taking IoT all the way up into things like Kubernetes, robust ecosystems across multiple nodes. We used to be restricted to just C. And now we have a diverse app ecosystem supporting all kinds of languages like .NET, Java, Python, C as well, still today, Node.js, or anything that you can bring your own language to that supports common communication protocols like MQTT or HTTP or AMQP. And we see these running on a wide variety of applications, from these small smart connected devices up to heavy edge hardware, Kubernetes, or even entire data centers that are focused on IoT specific workloads. And on top of that, we're seeing customers facing additional compliance and regulatory challenges while working with different industries. For example, dealing with ISO 95 compliance in manufacturing to be able to take smart applications and deploy them to highly secured, segregated networks, HIPAA and healthcare, looking at the automotive space and dealing with the complexities of a connected car where real-time decisions have someone's life in the balance. These are challenges that make these problems really difficult. And all these factors add to the complexity of the solution. Even the sheer number of options that are available these days can be a challenge of itself. And our goal as Azure IoT is to help. Our vision as a platform is really to simplify IoT adoption for the mainstream. We don't think that you should have to have decades of experience in order to build a highly reliable cloud-connected platform or a highly secured device. These are things that we want to make easy for you, things you should be able to get out of the box. And we're doing so by building a world-class set of well-integrated services that expertly balance power and simplicity, giving you all the options that you need, but in a package that is easy to consume and easy to get started to reduce that time to market. And also building and harnessing our partner ecosystem in industry verticals to help jumpstart projects and provide assistance in platform management, taking industry-specific expertise from our partners and bringing it to you ready to go. We really want to truly be a partner for your digital transformation. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what we mean by Azure IoT today. Azure offers a broad set of tightly integrated services for handling everything you need to build a device platform from the edge to the cloud. We have solutions for connectivity, device updates, modeling, even robust industry-focused IoT solutions through tools like IoT Central. But there's three particular services that I want to talk about today. Those are IoT Hub, our IoT device provisioning service, and IoT Edge. IoT Hub gives you the ability to securely connect an absolutely massive scale of devices, handling tens of millions of concurrent connections, each with a secure and unique identity, and facilitating bidirectional communication with numerous downstream Azure services. We can take your IoT data, route it through IoT Hub, and send it to things like Azure Stream Analytics, Event Hubs, Service Bus, anything that you would need for your application, and then receive data back to transmit down to your devices to build a full, high-scale bidirectional ecosystem. IoT Edge is our container-based workload management and messaging gateway that can run on top of anything from large clusters all the way down to something as small as a Raspberry Pi, providing secure outbound connectivity and offline operations for local devices. Things like IoT Edge become critical in smart operations like a connected building or a connected factory for being able to ensure real-time processing of data, collection of data, and resiliency in potential offline operations when we might not have a connection available. And lastly, device provisioning service is our service for managing devices at a global scale. It helps make the device manufacturing and bootstrapping process easy by handling provisioning, certificates, regional assignments, and more. If you're looking at building a global IoT platform with tens of millions of devices, tools like DPS become a must for being able to manage these things. I'm excited today to dive into these products a little bit more and talk a bit about the roadmap that's coming up. But before we do, I'd love to share a story of a customer that's leveraging all these services together and more. So I want to talk a little bit about Cooler Screens. Cooler Screens is the world's largest in-store digital retail media platform. They're working to revolutionize the customer shopping experience through a combination of IoT Hub for communication, IoT Edge for device workload management, DPS for global provisioning, and Azure Sphere, a hardware-based microcontroller offering from Microsoft for highly secured device administration. Cooler Screens is also using advanced AI and machine learning on the edge for improved store merchandising and inventory experience. With Azure IoT, they've been able to effectively deploy these into thousands of stores around the world while maintaining a unified control plane where they can have simple and easy access to deployments, automated testing, integration with CI/CD tools, everything you need to manage an ecosystem of this size. I want to highlight them because I think that they really represent the future of what IoT means to many businesses. It's not just the small, smart connected device these days. Now it's part of a broader ecosystem with robust tooling. As we think about IoT today, we often think about small, smart connected devices. But the hardware Cooler Screen has is anything but small. Robust AI and ML take processing power, a lot of processing power. And we're starting to see more IoT solutions that aren't just more powerful, but architecturally may even start to look like small data centers. And this is where it's really exciting to me. We're starting to see a lot of overlap with other parts of the broader Azure ecosystem. The difference between a device, a computer, a virtual machine, and a server is starting to get blurry. And I think that that's a really good thing. We're starting to see the convergence of both hardware and software management tools in a single robust management ecosystem, all enabled by Azure. As we look to the future, we're looking at not just how IoT devices function on their own, but how they operate in an environment where Kubernetes might be the underlying workload orchestrator, or Arc might be the device management plane. Our long-term goal is to provide a seamless end-to-end experience for both developers and platform operators in every environment, leveraging Azure IoT, Azure Arc, and Azure Kubernetes Service in the cloud and on the edge together. With that being said as our future goal, I'd like to take a moment to pivot to some of the more specific announcements that we have today. So we'll talk about our IoT platform now. IoT Hub. IoT Hub is our platform as a service connectivity gateway, as I mentioned earlier, and there's some really great things that are coming to it today. The first is continued regional expansion. As we see demand, we're continuing to roll out IoT Hub into new regions to be able to bring connectivity close to your customer base, close to your solutions. When we look at an IoT project, latency becomes critically important. A bit traveling from where I live in Florida all the way to something like Melbourne, Australia, takes a long time. The laws of physics hold us back. We need to be able to have tight, small bidirectional communication, low latency, high throughput. That means bringing cloud services close to you and close to your users. And so as Azure continues to expand, we see continued regional expansion for things like IoT Hub. In addition, we want to improve latency and availability. Something that we've noticed a lot of feedback on is the idea of devices that are very sensitive to things like disconnection. Updates to underlying cloud subsystems are critical, and in something like an HTTP-based application, they go relatively unnoticed. But with a constant connection that we see with an IoT device, where it may have a persistent MQTT connection that spans days, weeks, months, or more, as we do some of these lower-level service updates, sometimes the devices have to reconnect. And that becomes painful on customers when doing this in mass. And so we've worked hard to isolate some parts of our services to be able to reduce that as much as possible and provide a much better overall device connection experience. In addition, if you've been working with Azure IoT for a long time, you've noticed the SSL certificate or the TLS certificate for IoT Hub actually expires in 2025. All certificates expire at a given time. It's a pretty typical process, but we know people build these into their devices and have to provide updates as these things change. Most of Azure moved to a SHA-384 signed certificate, which actually caused some upset. There was a lot of folks that had concerns about being able to support new cryptographic algorithms that they might not have capabilities on these devices. And so today I want to announce that we're committing to delivering a SHA-256-based chain, which is going to be more appropriate for low-powered devices going forward. I'm also really excited to announce direct integration with Cosmos DB today. This is coming to public preview in the very near future. We've been working on this for a long time, and it should really reduce the friction to be able to get your data into something that we can process it in. And we're going to take a deeper dive into this in just a little bit. And lastly, device to cloud partitions. Device to cloud partitions is something that is a critical concept to understand as your IoT Hub and your IoT solution begin to scale. We provide the ability to partition your data. So as you're consuming data from IoT Hub, you can have multiple consumers at the same time and really operate at a high throughput, being able to read multiple streams of data. Previously, we've only made this available as something that you can configure on IoT Hub creation, meaning as your project scales, you may have to migrate to new hubs once you hit a certain tier. Today, we're announcing that we're enabling partitioning or repartitioning of IoT Hub through a support request at first. But for our truly high-scale customers that need to make modifications for this, we're going to be able to provide that feature to you. In addition, something that we see a lot of demand for is in MQTT. MQTT is, of course, one of the protocols that IoT Hub speaks, and we have millions of devices connected speaking MQTT today. And it's the protocol of choice for many IoT devices and for many scenarios. However, we also understand that a full MQTT broker is often required. We have a desire to support brownfield devices for things that are already existing to be able to lift and shift onto the Azure IoT ecosystem without having to make any changes, to make that as easy as possible. And so today, one of the things that we want to do is show commitment towards working towards an MQTT 3.1 and eventually MQTT 5.0 broker as a standalone cloud service. This will enable many new messaging scenarios for our customers and publish and subscribing on any topic. We'll be able to look at things like one-to-many broadcast patterns, many-to-many, or even direct device-to-device communication. Much of this functionality is in private preview, and we'll be coming to you with more information at a later date. In addition, I'd love to talk about the device provisioning service. This is our tool designed for building fleets of devices. If you have to manage tens of millions of devices, this becomes a tool that is so critical for you. Provisioning devices at a large scale is a big challenge. Handling things like certificate generation, certificate issuance, certificate management, regional assignments for tens of millions of devices becomes a complicated problem. We can't go to these devices physically. We can't even remote into these devices many times because they're locked away in people's homes. But with the Azure IoT Device Provisioning Service, we make this a lot easier. As with every service, we're continually working to improve resiliency and throttle limits. In addition, we're adding certificate issuance capabilities, meaning we can partner with third parties like DigiCert and GlobalSign to issue certificates for your devices without having to do this kind of manual process as we begin. We're also looking at starting to build leaf device provisioning. Some of this functionality exists today where your devices that are working with IoT Edge can reach out to the device provisioning service and say, hey, what edge node am I supposed to talk to? What do things look like from a security perspective? Who am I supposed to be? And through tools like the IoT device trust bundles, we're going to be able to deliver all the certificates and all the information you need in a trusted manner for devices that are interacting with either edge gateways or directly with IoT Hub. Overall, this should allow you to have a true seamless zero-touch provisioning process. Lastly, I want to talk about IoT Edge. IoT Edge, as mentioned earlier, is our premier device connectivity gateway that can run on the edge on something as small as Raspberry Pi or something as robust as a data center virtual machine, providing connectivity for Leaf devices to be able to talk to an edge gateway on a secure and isolated network and leverage a secure communication channel up with IoT Hub in the cloud. Later this year, we'll see our next long-term servicing branch for IoT Edge, Edge 1.3, released to the public. This release marks continued investments into reliability, security, and observability for edge devices, including general availability of our direct Azure Monitor integration. This will bring instant visibility to your entire fleet of devices. Having tens of thousands of devices out in the field, it's hard to understand what's connected and what's not, what's healthy and what's not. This will bring direct visibility into machine statistics, connectivity, all the types of things you would need to monitor health, even be able to go and get logs from these individual devices. This observability improvement will greatly reduce the amount of friction that we need to do things like log collection for devices, things that traditionally device builders have had to go manufacture themselves. This also marks continued investment into our local and cloud-bridged MQTT Broker. This is something that will pair very, very nicely with the eventual cloud broker to come, but has been in preview for a while on the edge, where we have full MQTT Broker functionality, where we can have seamless communication protocols, whether you're talking to the edge or to the cloud or in the cloud. It doesn't really matter. It's the same communication protocol everywhere. It's the same standards everywhere. It's one platform for communication all the way from the edge up to the cloud. And lastly, one last point I want to make is that we're continuing investment into what our story looks like for Edge on Kubernetes. We know that this is important. And I want to thank all of our customers for the wonderful feedback on what we've released in the past. Figuring this out and getting this story right is extremely important to us. And we know that it's very important to you. This is a space that we're investing in heavily, and our strategy is still constantly evolving. We're not quite ready to make any specific product announcements here today, but I look forward to the continued partnership with this community, and I'm really excited about where we'll be in the very near future. So with that, I'd love to take some time to show you a little bit of some of the features that are upcoming with a demo. This demo is going to involve a device talking to IoT Hub and highlight our direct integrations to Cosmos DB. No longer will we have to go through a custom application or an Azure function or a web app or use a tool like Azure Stream Analytics to collect that data and write it to Cosmos DB. In the coming weeks, IoT Hub will be able to release this data directly to Cosmos DB and provide really robust integration to all kinds of downstream services. And I call out Cosmos specifically, and I'm particularly excited about this integration because of Cosmos integration with a tool called Azure Synapse. I won't get into all the details of what Azure Synapse is today because it's an extremely robust and extremely powerful data analysis tool, but it allows us to provide really robust queries on top of our Cosmos data in a really performant manner, leveraging the Cosmos DB analytical store. When I create a Cosmos DB instance, I have the option to keep everything in traditional row-based NoSQL, where I can query everything based on partitions. It's quite performant. It works well for a real-time application. But one of the challenges has always been around large-scale data analysis. If I need to query across all the partitions that Cosmos has, it can get very expensive. Cosmos DB has functionality to be able to automatically repartition your data into a format that is designed for analysis. It keeps it in an analytical data format that Synapse understands natively. In just a couple of clicks, I can write very performant, very cost-effective queries against my Cosmos data and surface them up in Power BI in no time. And I'd love to show that to you today. When we first come to an IoT Hub, one of the things that we may notice is the ability to create routes into multiple downstream services. For the longest time, we've had access to things like Azure Storage, Event Grid to send data to Azure Functions, Azure Event Hub, Azure Service Bus, things like that. And today we announced that we're adding Cosmos DB as an endpoint. When I come into IoT Hub and I go to routing, I can choose to create a new endpoint. And this is this this is the screen that I'm presented with. It gives me the opportunity to name the endpoint. In this case, let's call it Cosmos. I can go ahead and select my Cosmos account. I can click the database within Cosmos DB, and I can click the collection. What this is going to do is this is going to give me the ability to create routes where I can create a specific query to say what subset of my IoT data I want to go into Cosmos DB. Now, I've already had this created, so I'm just going to walk us through the steps of what it would be like and then show how this works once it's running. But this is the creation screen. When I go to routes, I have the ability now to create a route and choose what my endpoint is. I have the Cosmos DB endpoint here from my list of endpoints that I've already created, and I can pick a data source. In this case, I want to show you device telemetry messages because I have a device that's sending up temperature data. It's just random temperature values from a simulated device, but it represents, many different things that could exist in the real world. But we certainly can send any kind of typical data that we have from IoT Hub, like lifecycle events, connection states, twin state changes, things like that, all through the route. And in this case, I'm going to leave the query just as true. IoT Hub has a really robust query syntax that you can use to filter data, enrich data, do all kinds of really neat things with it to only send the data that you care about to your destination. In this case, I want to send everything. And so I've already created this route, which means it's now sending data over to Cosmos DB. So I want to go take a look at my Cosmos instance. If I come into Cosmos DB, I can see my data store here. If I were to come down and take a look at containers, I can see the container that I'm routing to. There's about 6.4 megabytes of data. I've been running this demo for the better part of a day. And so it's not too much data in here, really small, but large amounts of lots and lots of different messages sending every 5 seconds for the last few hours or so. And something that I want to call out here specifically is Azure Synapse link. I mentioned that Cosmos DB integrates natively with Azure Synapse in a really, really easy manner. All that I had to do was click on Azure Synapse link, go ahead and check what I wanted, and hit enable. This took a few seconds. It repartitioned all of my data from Cosmos DB that I'd set so far, and then automatically repartitions data as it flows into a store that is designed for large-scale data analysis. What this does as well, when I go into my Azure Synapse cluster that I already have created, is it gives me a view here inside, just as if it was a SQL database. So I've got a view. I can select from my Synapse link IoT Hub demo, and I can see the data that's coming through. This is not data that's stored directly within here. It's data that's stored within Cosmos, and Synapse is providing the compute to analyze and give you a realistic view of your data in a really broad and robust ecosystem. Azure SQL can do all kinds of things with this data, right from the query language, like including machine learning models, all kinds of robust data analysis on the fly. This is particularly important and a big differentiator against other ways of doing analysis in the past, because what we used to do is take data and make changes to it before it landed in our analysis tool. What this lets us do now is actually query the raw data so that I can change how my view looks in the future. This gives me a typical T-SQL language to be able to work in that provides a very, very natural habitat for anyone that comes from a data analysis background. One of the things that I love to show is this data, when we look, some of it is in JSON, it has some raw data. This isn't necessarily what we want to surface up to a reporting tool, but because I'm in Synapse, in just a couple lines, I can create a new view for that data. By running this query, this actually selects pieces of my data, injects JSON parsing into it, and surfaces it up to look just like a table. By creating this view, what I can then do is I see a new resource in here that looks just like a table, looks just like something that I would see if I was querying SQL. But when I query this table here, I can actually see data coming through that includes data parsed out of my JSON in a nice, easy to consume manner, just as if it was, some other table that we had created with really well organized data. And the benefit of this is because it's based on a view, as my new data comes into Cosmos, it's already repartitioned, it's already run through this query, and it's available to me. Also, if I ever want to change this view in the future, because we're not doing modification of the raw data, all I have to come back in is change the view, and I can change what I want. If I want to add a new value outside of this body that I have, I start sending up something new. I don't have to change my analysis query that modifies the data and go back and historically make changes. If I make changes to this query now, it's automatically applied to all of my data as soon as I go to query it. The last piece that I would really want to show is how do we do something with this? So I've created a view. I've got a kind of cleaned up view of my data. It's doing some data analysis. This all arrives live from my IoT Hub. Just a couple clicks to get this all set up. What can I do with this? And I want to flip back to Cosmos real quick and show once Synapse Link has been enabled, I can actually just in a single click download a file, which includes a pre-connected workspace for Power BI Desktop. So I get a file, I double click it, and all of a sudden, those views that I've created based on this data are available to me. So let me jump over to Power BI real quick and zoom in here. And you can see once I open that file, I have that view that I've labeled as IoT Hub. I have the device ID, tag, timestamp, and value. Power BI isn't doing any of this processing. Power BI is simply showing me the data that is analyzed and cleaned by Synapse and handed to me in a real-time manner. From here, I can jump in and take a look at the raw data and see what we have here. So in this case, this is my build demo device sending up temperature data. It's just randomized data, so it's a bit all over the place, and then the timestamp. This data is now available to me in Power BI to build any kind of dashboard that I would want. And so from here, what I've done is I've just simply graphed the data. This took me maybe in all of 5 minutes to put together, of just a basic graph of over time, what do these temperature values look like, and a count of all the data that I've sent. So in this case, I've sent 4,374 pieces of data here. If I were to publish this dashboard, we can set it up to automatically refresh. I can refresh the data here in my local desktop instance by simply clicking refresh. And what this is going to do is this is going to leverage that view that we've created to take a new snapshot or new view of the data that exists in Cosmos DB that's having data delivered to it live from IoT Hub with almost no interaction. This entire thing was built without any code, anything that we would need to, typically need to do other than maybe just a basic SQL query to take really robust data analysis tools and make them available to our IoT ecosystem. So with that, I'm super excited that this is coming. This will be out in the very, very near future in public preview and GA later this year. I'm really excited for everyone to be able to use this because it truly should simplify what our overall IoT experience is. And with that, I'd just love to say thank you. Our goal as Azure IoT is to provide simple and easy means to build secure and highly scalable device platforms. And we can't do this without you, without our customers. It's been wonderful to see the growth of our platform over time, and we're really happy to continue to provide these tools to you. Have a great rest of Microsoft Build. Please catch all the other great sessions that are out there. There's some really fantastic things from other partners like Azure IoT Central and Azure Digital Twins. So please take a look, and thank you so much.